values of imported goods have changed a lot, right? So you've had importers that were declaring, $50,000 for a shipment. All of a sudden, values were decreasing. Now, some of it's probably because there was pressure on the suppliers to, sort of pay some of the tariff, essentially, right? But then there's probably a lot of that happening where it's just under declared, right? So when we're getting into sort of your territory here, how do you how do you deal with this? Because on one hand, this was the whole purpose basically of the tariffs, to say, because we've heard many times China pays the tariff. So if your product value went down all of a sudden, then technically China paid the tariff. But in reality, like, how do you prove that any of this is real? How do you prove that not, how much of it is real? What's the prudent thing to do at this point?
Going to give you two answers on that. The first is, I feel desperately sorry for companies that said to their supplier, let's just do it DDP. Supplier's like, yeah, I got you, man. I mean, we're going to work it out. Don't worry about it. I've been auditing entries where the unit cost of something before they went DDP was, say, $100. And then it went DDP, and I've gotten the information from the supplier, and suddenly the value's like 40. I wonder how that happened. I've been doing customs valuation as my main job for over 30 years. And man, I've done some voodoo and some witchcraft to manage entered value. Never seen anybody drop it by 60%. And that is going to be a red flag to customs. They're going to ask a lot of questions about that. Why is it that your supplier suddenly is making, they have a 60% 60% margin? Because we're looking at other HTSs for similar companies, and theirs is more like 12. What's going on here? And they're going to go after that foreign supplier when they try to get their refunds on the IEEPA tariffs. It's going to come to light, and that importer that gave it over to DDP, that American company, their name is the notified party on the documents. That's the part no one's paying attention to. So Pete Mento Corporation says to my supplier, yeah, man, go for it. And now I'm suddenly not paying more than I was before. Any reasonable person would ask questions about basis of appraisement. But I'm on the documentation as the notified party. So if there's a fraud investigation, I'm getting a phone call to ask me questions about, did I have a reasonable understanding of the changes to basis of appraisement? That is going to be an ugly conversation. And yes, a lot of these foreign suppliers are playing stupid reindeer games with their valuation strategies, and they had a lot to gain from it, but they're going to lose their right to import. They're going to be sanctioned. They're going to end up getting fines and penalties. Now, Chinese suppliers will just go across the street and change the name, but the fact remains there will be some upcomings for what they've done.
So Pete, in a lot of cases, there was legitimate revisions to the value and how value is calculated. I can think of a number of examples that I've had to. I was involved in those conversations. Things like like a country of origin rule that may you may have product that qualifies for two different treatments, and you make a decision based on like, let's call it legitimate tariff optimization or duty optimization, right? Now, it's not all black and white, right? There are cases where you maybe didn't pay attention to the country of origin rules because it had no bearing on the tariff, because they were all duty free, and now all of a sudden you want the preferential treatment, and now you go and review your country of origin rules, and then you end up with a different sort of classification, different country of origin, different tariffs, done legitimately, right? So what do you make of that? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you?
Yeah, well, you got two issues that you need to immediately address. The first is, let's say it's legitimate. Let's say that for 20 years you were importing under a certain basis of appraisement. Turns out you look through it and you see a legitimate way to control your entered value. First sale program, properly using selling agent agreements where the seller's agent no longer, buying agent is their commission is now duty free. Transportation costs under CIF. There's all kinds of things that can be used. Well, now you're saying to the government, all that stuff I did the past 10 years was wrong. I'm doing it right now. If you don't realize that customs is going to look at all the old stuff and say, at what point were you lying to me? Are you lying to me now? Or are you lying to me then? If you make a substantial change to classification, country of origin, valuation, the list goes on and on, you need to take the time to also do a prior disclosure for your past entries for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is they might have a bunch of your money you want to get back if it was correct. The second half to the answer to this question is, it reminds me of Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments. So it is written, so it shall be done. Show me the memo that you put together that's with your compliance information that was reviewed and validated by leadership at the company, that you made this decision consciously with intention. You did the work to determine it and be able to show your work. Because if customs disagrees with you, it's a lot like calculus in college. You might have gotten the answer wrong, but you did the work to get there. They might go a little easier on you. But if it's just something where you did a little math on the back of a napkin and decided to change everything, you're just asking for trouble. Show me the written memo that you did that was codified and agreed upon by leadership. And then I'm going to feel a little more confident in it. Or by an outside party, attorney, customs broker, consultant, your Aunt Rita, whatever. But have someone else who's told you that this is the correct way to go.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're saying basically, be prepared, right? Be prepared for an audit of each entry. Is that kind of what you expect?
Always, brother. Always.
No, I mean, for sure. I'm just saying, auditing $400 billion worth of entries. As like a because a regular post summary correction takes, I don't know, the refund takes like a year. So we're talking potentially many years for this, but that's if they process everything like they process a post summary correction, which is not really an audit. Now your position is that you expect that every entry will be actually audited.
Yes. And so this is the great thing about living in Washington, D.C. I am surrounded by hypocrisy, right? It's like being in love with a narcissist. Everything that you do is wrong is okay if they do it. I had a lot of therapy, Robert, a lot of time to reflect. So the government has told us, the import community, you as an operative customs house broker, my clients that are importers, you need to be wary of the use of artificial intelligence. If you give me an answer that came from AI, I'm going to question the validity of it and whether or not that was reasonable care. At the same time, the government's going to use artificial intelligence to audit all of these entries because they don't have nearly enough people. So on one side of their mouth, they're going to say, now listen, it's not okay for you to do AI because we don't trust you and your AI, but trust us. We're going to use AI to audit all of these things. It's cool. It's going to be fine. Don't freak out. I mean, that level of hypocrisy can only be done at the governmental level, but it's what we're going to see. They're going to go through all of those entries in the only cost-effective, efficient way they know how, which is the use of data elements and large language models. It makes sense. But if we do that, we're going to get in trouble.
So basically, the expectation is that they're going to use some kind of AI models to compare sort of trends and things like that and spot, whatever looks weird. But wouldn't that mean that they would at least prioritize the weird and the outliers and things like that?
Absolutely. But they're going to be told by AI which ones are weird. I'll give you a great example. You paid IEPA tariff on something that was also subject to another tariff, 301s, let's say, right? Anti-dumping, countervailing. They're going to see whether or not you properly applied those tariffs as well. Or if it's a stacking situation where you pay IEPA and 232 on the derivatives, did you properly apply the 232 tariff for steel and aluminum on the derivative? They're going to ask questions about that. So here you are, don't forget, folks, you're surrendering your entry to the government and saying, please find something wrong, but if you don't, give me my bag of money. They're going to look. They're going to really look to see if you did anything wrong. And if you did do something wrong, they're going to put a big red denied stamp on your claim. And it's going to be followed with a Customs Form 28 asking for more information about the other thing you screwed up. Which is why we're not going to put a single entry in front of the government until a human being has audited it from front to back. And yeah, that takes time, but it's worth it because I don't want to have to call a client back and say you didn't get your money back because we missed a mistake in your entry. Brokers make mistakes. I know it's hard to believe because we're pretty fabulous people, but we do make mistakes. We're human beings. And think about all the work that's been added to a broker's desk in the past 10 months. additional lines to Chapter 99s, the valuation for derivatives to understand the proper duty. I mean, it's wrought with opportunities for peril, folks, to have mistakes there. So I just don't trust it.